This week on Quoted 2.0.
So, just like anything that you would do in life, I mean, I would never go to somebody with completely zero knowledge about the topic and then go, oh, here, I'll give you all my assets. Go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Quoted 2.0. We are here with the Director of Giving at Rider University, Dan Pinto. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm fine. So it's planned giving.
Planned giving, that's right.
Planned giving, which is different than just regular giving, but that's okay.
0 for 1 now. So, Dan, I appreciate you being here. And that kind of leads me to the first question. Could you just explain exactly what it is you do for Rider?
So I help people give larger gifts to the university through their estate planning. So wills, beneficiary designations, things like that. So people tend to give larger amounts that way. So I specifically deal with people who are making plans in their estate, and estates don't have to be big. We have folks that supposedly don't have a lot of money, but there's a saying, even 1% is enough. So
are people more willing to give that way, kind of like you said, like through an estate versus it's not coming directly from themselves? Is that how it works?
I don't know if they're more willing. It's just wealthier people are more aware that this is a technique. Think of it this way: it's the what's left conversation. So you have a choice. If you are lucky enough to be able to have money left over after you pass away, you want to take care of your family. You want to make sure that your health needs are taken care of while you're alive. But then there's a what's left amount. And the choice becomes, do you want that to go to the government, which highly taxes estates, especially states have a state tax. So there's federal estate taxes and state estate taxes. Mm-hmm. So many states have 16, 17, 18%. So even if you don't own anything to the federal government, you're going to own a substantial amount or owe a substantial amount to the state government. So do you want to do that or give it away? If you give it away, you don't get taxed on it.
And did you find that, so when you started, what was the strategy for getting people on board with you versus what is it now? Did it alter at all? Did it change as the years went by?
Yeah, I think so. Part of it, this is a real relationship building job. So you're not going to approach somebody right off the bat and just go, hey, you're going to die one day. You want to give us some money? That's not the way it works. It's about building a relationship. And in general, this is what charitable giving is all about. It's it's a very personal thing. People are either going to be charitable or not charitable. And essentially you're inviting them to the party.
And clearly you were successful in it, given you've gotten people such as Norm Brodsky, who was obviously was probably the most massive person you could have landed. Was there any type of crazy story that went along with getting Norm? Or was it more of you just sticking to your script and sticking to your strategy from early on?
Norm was an interesting story because people said, boy, we can't locate this guy. We can't find him. And I was like, in this day and age, you can't find a guy like Norm. And I didn't know much about Norm. I assume now your viewers know who he is because you probably mentioned him a number of times. But he wrote for Inc. magazine for years, right? So I just went on and read all his articles in the archives, which he's very open about his businesses, his successes and his failures. And one of his successes was this one company that he said he sold, but he was still on the board. So I just called the company. This is my first week in the job, right? And this is after people said, "Oh no, we can't find this guy." And I was like, seriously? So I call up the company and I say to them, hey, is Norm Brodsky still on your board? Oh, yes, he's very active. I said, does he go to the board meetings often? Are they held nearby or at the company? And they go, oh, yeah, he actually, his residence is here at the company. He had a box storage business, but he had a beautiful apartment up above that overlooked all of Manhattan. And so they said he actually lives here. And I said, is he there? They said, let me check. And they connect me, and Norm picks up the phone. He doesn't have any secretaries or anybody. He's got, he and Elaine, and he goes, Norm Brodsky. And that started the whole thing.
It's funny because it feels like, how you just described that is kind of like going above and beyond, which obviously any type of entrepreneur would know, because anyone that's just in the role would accept the fact like, okay, this guy's off the list, like, and just give him a cross off.
Right.
And then all of that is everything he's ever given is gone. It just
Right.
erases from history.
Right.
So I just feel like it's a lesson for anyone in business in general, or even employees as well, because from my perspective of being in the 9-to-5 life versus having your own business, it's like a mindset thing of a lot of people in the 9-to-5 life will just accept stuff and not really look to do anything above their paycheck in a way, which
Right.
to me is how you earn more, because then people notice that you're the one contributing and you're the one doing your job properly. So it's cool to hear, that I feel like that reinforces that mindset in a way.
And so it literally took one phone call.
That's amazing.
Well, I did a little research, of course, which is always the key when you're doing any kind of soliciting or sales or anything like that. You absolutely have to know your customer, know your client. I mean, I used to be a financial advisor, and there was a lot of cold calling involved.
It's funny though, because that leads into my next question of, I was going to speak about you being a financial advisor for Merrill Lynch. So I've done my research. Because it brings me up. I talk to a lot of friends and a lot of people in my network about investing. And I feel like there's a huge problem of people aren't as educated as they should be in the investing world. And then the question is, if you're completely uneducated, as someone who used to be a financial advisor, do you think it's wise to go to a financial advisor being completely uneducated and not really knowing, like you're just handing the money over and saying, all right, you do something with it?
No, I think anything you do in life, in my mind, and you're going to probably see this if you do actually ask me for a quote, you're going to see this. It's always about, no matter what you do, if I'm going to get my bathroom renovated, right? I don't just call up anybody and just, think about, you understand, what has to be done? What's the best way to do it? Who are the people who do it the best way? What's the best price? All that stuff. So just like anything that you would do in life, I mean, I would never go to somebody with completely zero knowledge about the topic and then go, oh, here, I'll give you all my assets. Go ahead. So, that's one of the things that we can all do, I think, is we can always, strive to learn more about, about everything.
Yeah, 100%.
In the world.
Transitioning more towards the students at Ryder, I can only go off of my own experience, but I feel like I was lucky and very fortunate enough that I eventually did get into business. And I wasn't business minded, or I didn't enjoy business leading up to my time at college to going to Ryder. And then I finally, dive deep into it junior year and on. How do you think, and I feel like a lot of people don't really ever get embraced into the business world in at universities. How do you think colleges and even high schools for that matter could really do a better job of piquing students' interest earlier on?
In business?
In business, yeah.
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm closer to Norm's age than your age, right? Business, back when I was going into college, people were like, what's business? What's a business? What's a businessman? That kind of thing. Nobody really nobody really knew. People majored in business, but they didn't really understand, what it was. And I think part of that has to come from, it's almost cultural. I think in some regards, if you sit around the kitchen table with your family and your dad's the CEO of a company or your mom's the CEO of a company, you're naturally going to get into all these conversations about, oh, this is how the business is doing. These are the problems I have. These are the things we're trying to solve, those conversations. Then you start to realize, oh, everybody doesn't have these conversations, right? So, it shouldn't be a class thing. It shouldn't be the fact that these conversations should be had in a university, in a high school. Bring in business people, have conversations with students of all economic backgrounds. It'll open up their world and open up their knowledge, and maybe spark something or give them some type of inspiration where, because they aren't hearing about that at their dinner table or through their relatives or their friends. I mean, I got to tell you, I grew up as a very, a poor kid. I lived in Northeast Connecticut. Nobody I knew was a business person. My father worked in a jewelry store. He didn't make a lot of money. I found out my dad died real young. I was working in a bar in New York City, and I made twice as much as he made in one night in tips that my dad made all week. And I wondered, how did we have I had a great life. I never thought I was poor. I had a baseball bat, a bicycle, right? But we never had discussions about business or who a businessman was.
And it really is about and I think that's something that Ryder does very well. They bring in, when I was there, even versus now, I know how much they bring in people. And even Lisa Teach talking about who the entrepreneurs they brought in just to speak to a class. And it's crazy because one thing that you hear could really get your, the mind working, and all of a sudden you're thinking about things differently. Like for me, it was Dr. Zane's class, ENT 100. Before that class, I really hadn't thought much about business at all. And I think on top of that, of what you just said, having a teacher who also was in that world for a long time, who it wasn't just like a teacher reading from a textbook. It was really someone who was experienced in entrepreneurship, speaking about their past and their stories and experiences that they've had along the way. That was definitely something for me that I think really piqued my interest as well. And I think that's something that you're right, that's something that all schools could definitely do a better job of, for sure.
Yeah.
And now you also, this is bad. Now I'm rewinding time again. We're backing it up. And also, side note, one of the most interesting things that I heard at Oxford, you're an actor too, all of a sudden. An actor and a actor for a while. I think it was 20 plus years.
30 years.
30, excuse me. How did you get into being an actor? What prompted that? How did you get into that world?
That's a crazy story. I ended up in New York through another job. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had decided that I wasn't going to go to medical school, even though I have a degree in zoology. That's what I was studying in college. I thought I was going to go to med school, but I ended up not doing that, and ended up in New York. And I thought, hey, I could probably do some kind of commercials or something, because I did print work. I knew a little bit about it, but not that much. And I totally went in totally backwards. I went into this video class that I had bought into, not knowing that all the people in that class were actually trained actors from universities, that they were just trying to buy their way in to meet casting directors who were the ones that taught this class, this video class on soap opera technique, on commercial technique. So one of the first things they ask you to do is do a monologue. I have a science degree. I never read a play in my life up to that point. So anyway, I had no idea what I was doing. I was absolutely horrible So bad, so bad. People I think might have, one of my friends that turned out in the class, I think he just must have realized, he said, this guy's either nuts or he really has no idea what this is about. And lucky it was that I had no idea what it was about. I wasn't necessarily nuts. So he said, you need acting classes, man. This is what you have to do. So I stayed in that video class for about a year and a half, 2 years. I actually learned how to do the video equipment. I volunteered for classes. I got to watch hundreds of people come through the class for free because I was working there.
Oh, wow.
And then I took classes with one of the best acting teachers in New York City at the time, and took me 5 years. And then it was like a re-education. And so every time I heard of a play that somebody would refer to, I would go get that play and read it. So I read hundreds and hundreds of plays. And then, and then slowly but surely, I started to work in, and then I did a little showcase thing, which they used to do in New York. And about, I don't know, 8 to 10 agents called me up for commercial work. And I went with one of the best commercial agents in the city, and then I just started booking commercials left and right, which enabled me to stay in the business and go for the other stuff, the series, the soaps, movies, stuff like that. So I got close a bunch of times to the real big thing, but I never got the big thing. But I was fortunate, as I had 30 years in the business. I was one of the top commercial voiceover actors in the business for 20, 25 years. I have a pension, and I'm probably going to go back someday.
Wow, that's a statement. You heard it here first on Quota 2.0 now. That's almost like it's kind of like following advice of investing in yourself in a way, because you took something that you ended up being very passionate about. Yeah. I mean, 5 years. It's not like you just did it for 2 months and all of a sudden you were good. Like, it was like, oh, I can do this. 5 years. That's
it took a
risk and investment on yourself.
Yeah, it took a lot. It was like a whole re-education. We joke in the commercial world, I was Marlon Blando, because I was the best at just being a bland white guy in your subconscious.
And last question for you, Dan. We end this with every guest. The quote of the day from you. Do you have one that motivated you or kept you positive over the years in business?
I picked a quote from Einstein about curiosity, because he said, he actually said, which I think everybody would disagree with, but he said, I have no special talents. I'm only passionately curious. And he went on to say, the important thing is not to stop, is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. And so he says, as long as you go about asking questions and looking at life and looking at reality, if you just try and do just a little bit of that every single day, you're gonna have a great life.
I love that. What a way to end. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dan Pinto, Director of Planned Giving at Rider University, actor, financial advisor. What can't this man do? Dan, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ethan. It's been fun. Good luck to you. Keep this going, and we'll see you.